Now then, I seem to have caused a bit of a debate on one of my videos, and that video is clearing up misconceptions of IGEM G11 unsafe situations procedure and how to classify them. I've failed miserably and I've let you down, and I apologise. So let's get on with it and find out exactly what has happened in this video. Now, the reason for the video was to try and clear up some misconceptions about our unsafe situations procedure in the gas industry, and I've kind of proved my point with some of the comments what were put onto the video and the thumbs up some of you guys have been putting up to these comments. Now, I've had a really good discussion with a guy called Ed Metcalf. Cheers Ed for contributing to the video, and he was adamant right at the very beginning that my first picture on the Flue, which was too close to a window, that I was supposed to classify it as at risk when I said it was not to current standards, even though we were not getting any products of combustion back into the property through a window. And he's even gone to the extent of contacting GasSafe, which is pretty good of him to do that, and GasSafe have come back and said not every Flue, when it's too close to a window, is automatically at risk. It's all about the different scenarios. Now, at the end of the day, it's the engineer's judgment. So the whole thing about the unsafe situations procedure is, so an engineer going out to service, repair or install an appliance and they find an unsafe situation, it's up to that engineer to make the decision on whether they think it's at risk, ID, not to current standards, and whether they need to rid-or it or not. So it's your decision, and if you decide that that situation is going to be at risk, then you need some evidence to back it up with to make sure that you are categorising them correctly. So what I've done is I've put a few more together, taken a few from a couple of old videos, and we'll go through a few more of these unsafe situations, and hopefully by the time we've finished this video we have put all these misconceptions to bed and we can classify unsafe situations correctly and safely for us and for our customers. Let's get on with it then. Now, this first picture represents you going to a site where they're doing some renovations, and you find this in the kitchen where they're asking you to install a new boiler. So, what do you think about this one then? So what have we got here? We've actually got a plastic push fit fitting on a gas pipe leading up to a bayonet feeding a cooker, and the cooker is still working. So what would you class this as? And is there anything else you want to do besides using the unsafe situations procedure? So I'll give you a few minutes or a few seconds. I'll go find out the page in the book and see what it is and see if you're right. So last look, plastic push fit elbow on a gas pipe feeding a working gas appliance. So what are you going to categorise that as? So as you can see, this is section 3, paragraph 2 on page 23. Pipework and or fittings of inappropriate material or purpose, e.g. plastic water pipe or hose pipe on a gas pipe, would be classed as immediately dangerous. And I guess you would be rid-or-in as well. So that was a nice easy one to start off with. Did you get it? That it's ID and it's rid-or reportable. So what made it rid-or reportable? Now, on the new IGEM G11 edition 2, it has this yellow section at the top now, and I'll read it to you. It says, when considering whether an unsafe situation is rid-or reportable, the following criteria needs to be met. Number 1, the situation is a result of design, construction, manner of installation, modification, or incorrect servicing of the fitting, often referred to as poor workmanship or design, and is it dangerous to such an extent as is likely to or has caused death, unconsciousness, taken to hospital of a person. Note, see section 8.6 for all other reportable routes. Why does it make it ID and RIDOR? Because somebody has used a water fitting on a gas pipe which could cause a leak and could cause an explosion and could cause death at any time. So that's what makes it RIDOR reportable, because somebody has actually done this. So hopefully you got that one. Number one, ID and RIDOR for any plastic push fit fittings or hose pipes or any inappropriate fitting used on gas. Now in this scenario is, you've gone to do a landlord's report, you see there is a gas hob for an electric oven. So when you remove the electric oven, this is what you find. So this is how it is connected. So on further investigation, you ask the tenant, when was this hob fitted? Because it looks brand new. And they said it was fitted by the landlord 2 weeks ago. You're there to do a landlord's report, you remove the oven. Now some engineers say you can't remove the oven. My personal opinion on it is, if you don't remove the oven, then you're not going to find something like this. Also, they've told you the landlord's installed it, not a gas engineer. So how are you going to categorise this situation, and what are you going to do? Again, this comes under section 3 pipework. Again, it comes under 3 paragraph 2. Pipework and or fittings of inappropriate material or purpose, e.g. plastic water pipe or hose pipe. You can see it comes with ID, but would you RIDOR the landlord? Well, technically, yes, you should be RIDORing the landlord, because it's incredibly dangerous and he's going around doing gas work. But does that mean you're not going to get paid for doing your landlord's report? Well, possibly not. But I think I would be rather RIDORing the landlord and not getting paid for doing the landlord's report than leaving something as dangerous as this. If you don't agree with me, put in the comments down below and let's see how many of you don't agree that you should RIDOR the landlord. Now again, if you're out to do a landlord's report and you notice the flue goes vertically into the loft and then through the roof. So we must get into the loft and inspect it. And this is what you find when you get into the loft. So as you can see from the picture, the flue is inadequately supported because they've used this banding, and 2, they put some tape around the actual joints. So bear in mind those 2 scenarios. What would you classify this as? So again, we'll find this in section 6, chimney flues for room sealed, on page 33. So it's 6.6, room sealed chimney flue system which are damaged, insecure, inadequately supported and or using incorrect jointing method to such an extent that it may cause it to become unsafe and or a breach of integrity is likely. So that would be classed as at risk. This one represents you going to price up to move a boiler for a self-build extension. So there's no builder involved in this. The actual homeowner is sorting it all out themselves and getting individual trades in to do the jobs. And you rack up to give them a price to move the boiler. And the customer is proud in the way they've diverted the products of combustion while the brickies are bricking up the extension. I love this picture. I think it's amazing. I love the way they've used the toilet pan connector to bring it down with the waste pipe. I think it's amazing. But how would you classify this in the unsafe situations procedure? Now then, what have you classified this as? Because basically what they've done is extended the flue system out through the window using plumbing pipes, waste pipes. But they've also encased the products of combustion and the air in the same tube. And then put it out the window. Believe it or believe it not, there is nothing in IGM 11 to say what a bodged flue is. So the only one any close to it is 6.6, which says a room sealed chimney flue system which are damaged, insecure, inadequately supported and or using incorrect jointing methods to such an extent that they may cause it to become unsafe and or breach integrity is likely. And they've at-risked it. But would you at-risk this situation? Not a can of house chance would I be at-risking this. What's your opinions on it? Stick it in the comments down below if you think it's immediately dangerous. But it would only be classed as immediately dangerous if you got more than 10 parts per million of CO coming into the room. And I think probably if you stand there with your flue gas analyzer at that open window when the wind's blowing towards you, you're going to get more than 10 parts per million CO coming into the room. But there is nothing, or I could not find anything in here with this situation or this scenario. It's all about whether products are coming back into the room. So, what did you put? Did you put at risk? Or did you put ID and RIDOR? Because me personally, I would be IDing and RIDOR in this situation. Because it's so goddamn dangerous. Imagine if the bits of tape fell off and the heat affected it. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Now this picture represents you going to do a landlord report again, and this time when you go into the living room you find a flue space heater connected to the gas supply via a cooker hose. What are we going to classify this as? So how have you got on with this one then? Did you ID it? Well, if you did, you'd be wrong. Because this comes under 7.11. Flexible gas connections to a flue domestic appliance is categorised as at risk. But it does say at the side on the comments, this requirement does not apply to a gas-fired tumble dryer installed to the requirements of BS 7624. Or a cooker. So that is what you should have said. We should have classified it as at risk. It's not ID, because at the end of the day that cooker hose can have gas going through it. But if it was, say, a flexible tap connector connecting that fire to the gas supply, then that would be immediately dangerous and RIDOR reportable. Now this picture represents you going to service this valent boiler and you find this when you're inspecting the flue system. What would you categorise this as? Did you actually notice quite a few faults on this? Or did you just concentrate on the major one? So let's go through it. First one is, did you notice the test caps missing? This has only just been added to this new version of iGEM 11, so this second edition, and this is 7.2. Now in the old edition, the first edition, 7.2 was left blank. So this is now what it says in 7.2. So breach of room sealed appliance integrity caused by missing or damaged seals. So flue gas analyzer sample point cap missing, damaged, regardless of evidence of leakage of products of combustion, is immediately dangerous. Number 2, air inlet sample point cap missing, damaged, no evidence of leaking of products of combustion, that one's at risk. Or grommets forming part of the combustion circuit missing, damaged, no evidence of leakage of products of combustion, again that's classed as at risk, but we haven't got that one. So if you do open the front cover and the grommets are missing where the cables come through, then that would be at risk. So what other faults have we got here? Well, we've actually got wood screws holding the collar on, and then there's no screws actually holding the collar to the turret and the flue elbow. So what does it say about that then? So again, this comes under 6.6, but if we look in the comments to the side of it, they say it's at risk, but it says evidence that the chimney flue system is inadequately supported and or incorrectly jointed. This includes inadequate clipping, missing clips, screws or sagging, allowing movement of the chimney flue in such an extent that it may cause it to become unsafe and or breach of integrity is likely. So that using the wrong screws and screws missing, you could at-risk it as well. But 2 at-risks don't make an ID. Only 2 not to current standards on fluing makes an at-risk. And if it's an open fluid appliance now, you get 1 fault on an open fluid appliance on its flue system, then that automatically becomes at risk. So 2 not to current standards on room sealed is at risk. Just 1 fault on open fluid is at risk. Now this picture represents you going to service this Worcester boiler. So when you do your visual inspections of the flue system outside, you find this. But when you do your flue integrity test, the integrity test fails. But when you do your sweep test around the flue system and the turret and around the boiler casing, it passes. So you do not have more than 10 parts per million CO coming into the room. So how are you going to categorise this? So this comes under a couple of sections. The first one is our good old friends 6.6. So room sealed chimney flue system which are damaged or insecure. This is definitely damaged. And we would categorise this as at risk because of the damage. But I did say it failed its integrity test. But when you did the sweep test around the appliance, we weren't getting 10 parts per million CO coming into the room. So it's failed its combustion test. So that's on the next page. So it's actually coming under 7.6. So failure to achieve satisfactory combustion readings when using an electronic portable combustion gas analyzer. Now if this was a flueless appliance, according to this, it would be ID. But it's not, it's a fluid appliance. So it's at risk. Also 7.7 says flueless or fluid appliances with visual signs of incomplete combustion at the main burner and or with the heat exchanger. Flueless would be ID and fluid would be at risk, but it passed its combustion test. It was the integrity test when it failed. So this one we would be classing it as at risk. Simple as that. Did you get it right? Now this picture represents again you going to service the boilers. You can see here from the 2 flues on the right hand side. So is there anything here what would make the system at risk, ID or not to current standards, or even would you need to redoor anybody? How have you gone on with this one? So these, as you can see here, the 2 flues, well there's quite a few flues, are terminating in this covered passageway. So there is 6.3 in our IGEM G11 which says chimney flues terminating into a semi-enclosed area, e.g. covered passageway or ginnel. It says following an assessment in accordance with the guidance given in TB007, so Technical Bulletin 007, it is found that the combustion products are entering the building, then we will be classifying this as immediately dangerous. Or there is a risk of the combustion products maybe entering the building, it would be at risk. And I think there's a pretty big chance of combustion products entering this building. And then obviously we would have the appliance run in and do a sweep test around there. Also, if that was classed as a carport, then the flues would need to be 1200 mil away from an opening to a building. But that would be not to current standards, wouldn't it? Unless you've got products combustion entering the room, and then it will become ID. So until you've done the checks on this situation, we would be at risking it or IDing it. So just racking up to things like this, we can't just automatically assume it's ID, because it's been there a long time. We would be at risking it. And obviously doing sweep tests to see whether it becomes ID or not. So what did you put for that one? Bit of a tricky one to finish with, and it's one where a lot of gas engineers would get into an argument with you about. Well, I think a lot of these gas engineers would get into an argument about. So it's going to be interesting to see what gets put down in the comments, even though I have been reading it out of IGEM G11. This picture represents you going to do a tightness test before any gas work where you're going to be breaking into the gasways. So as you can see, we've got something missing within 600 of the metre or before the first branch. So what would you categorise this as? So from IGEM G11 edition 2, you can see it's 3.19, equal potential bonding not installed or inadequate, e.g. not secure. Electrical issue, see clause 332 in this procedure. We'll have a look at that in a minute, but then it also says see right. So if we do look right, it says leave a bonding notice informing the responsible person that the equal potential bonding work should be checked or carried out by an electrical competent person. For further guidance, see Gas Safe Registered Technical Bulletin 102. Basically, we're classifying this as NCS, not to current standards. So let's find out what this 332 is. Now, the IET wiring regulations and British Standards 7671 and the Gas Safety Installation and Use Regulations 1998, which was amended in 2018, states that gas pipes should be earth bonded. Now, let's read you this 3.32 from the IGEM G11 Unsafe Situations Procedure. It says, Regulations 18.2 of the Gas Safety Installation and Use Regulations place a duty on a gas engineer to notify the responsible person that equal potential bonding may need to be connected to a gas installations in domestic premises. So basically what it's saying is, if you rack up to somebody's house and there's no earth bonding, because we are not electricians, we need to let the responsible person, or the homeowner or the landlord or whatever, that we need earth bonding. And I'll show you what we need to do in a minute with that. But there is a note here. It says, where non-metallic, non-conductive, e.g. PE, service pipes, service pipelines enter the building and then connect to metallic pipes within the building, the metallic pipes within the building do not require protective bonding. So this is where gas engineers and electricians kind of say earth bonding is not needed if we've got plastic pipe coming in, our gas pipeline is plastic coming into the property. But that's all well and good if you've got MCBs and RCDs, so miniature circuit breakers and residual current devices. Then if anything happens and you've got straight current, then they'll trip. But we've got no protection when we're cutting into a gas pipe. So if there was a stray current or voltage going through this gas pipe, then we could create a spark and could create an explosion. So we should be using our temporary continuity bonds to protect us, and obviously our non-contact fault indicator. But why doesn't it need earth bonding now? That's what I don't get. Anyway, I will read on. It says, where required, the purpose of equal potential bonding is to ensure that gas installations, other metallic services and parts within the premises remain safe under electrical fault conditions. Where bonding is necessary, it should preferably be connected within 600 mil of the outlet of the gas meter before the branch, or where the meter is fitted outside the building as near as points to each entry of the pipework inside the building before any branch. So if you have got an outside meter box, then if you can see the gas pipe on the inside, you put it on the inside rather than the outside. Where a gas engineer cannot confirm that adequate bonding arrangements were necessary or exist, HSE guidance is that the responsible person be notified in writing of the requirement of equal potential bonding. This can be achieved by leaving a bonding notice as described in BS 6891, which advises that the bonding be checked, carried out by an electrical competent person. So do we need to put bonding on, or don't we need to put bonding on? Well, because we're not electricians, we just need to make the customer aware, and then we need to make sure that we're checking there isn't a stray voltage with our non-contact voltage indicator, and we also need to use our temporary continuity bonds to keep us safe. If you disagree with me, put it down in the comments down below. But what is this notice then? So we advise and we carry these stickers, which you can buy off the internet, which you will leave at the gas meter. So you can either stick it on the meter if you want, or you can stick it in the meter box if it's outside, as long as it can be read and easily seen by the person in charge, the owner, the tenant, the landlord, whoever. So that's what we need to use. We need to use one of these electrical bonding notices, because remember, we're not electricians, we're gas engineers. So this short video clip shows an engineer confirming that there is let-by on an ECV while carrying out a tightness test. but there is no smell of gas within the property at all. So how would we categorise an ECV passing with no smell of gas? So according to iGEM G11 edition 2, it's 3.7. It says let-by on an ECV without the smell of gas, we would categorise it as at risk. But obviously if there was a smell of gas, then we would be deeming it as immediately dangerous because we wouldn't be able to turn off the gas to stop the smell or the leak. How do we deal with this situation? So let's go across to the other side of the book and find out what we should be doing. Now the other side of the page says notify the gas emergency contact centre, or in the case of LPG, notify the gas supplier. It then says see contact list on table 2, which is at the front of the book and gives you all the phone numbers. It then says make safe as described in iGEM UP1 series of procedures. So basically if we had a cap for the ECV, we would be putting that on, or we could even be reconnecting the anaconda and then ringing Cadent or the LPG supplier to come out and change the ECV before we would be allowed to do any work on it, because there was no smell of gas. Obviously slightly different if there is a smell of gas, and Cadent will have to act a little bit quicker than they normally do. Now this next scenario represents you going to do a service of a new condensing boiler. And because you go through into the living room, and according to iGEM G11 Appendix 5, you have actually encountered this gas appliance, you see this staining above the top of this radiant gas fire. So, what is this staining, and what would you classify this situation as? Remember, you're not there to work on this fire, you're there to work on the boiler. Now, according to iGEM G11, page 21, 1.5, where no work is being undertaken on an appliance, but there is visual signs of spillage or leakage of products of combustion from the appliance and or chimney flue, and there is no evidence that the problem has been corrected, we must class it as ID. So that means we would have to investigate it, and if we didn't have time to investigate it, we must disconnect from the gas supply with the customer's permission, issue a warning notice and stick on our sticker. And if the customer refuses you to disconnect it from the gas supply, then you must get in touch with Cadent and they'll come and do it. Now this picture represents you going to do a landlord's report, and when you're doing your visual inspection of your pipework, you find this gas pipe is installed right next to a plug socket. So what would we categorise this as? Now, looking through iGEM G11, you won't find this scenario anywhere. So if you can't find the scenario in here, then basically you can class it as not to current standards. So how far does a gas pipe need to be away from a plug socket? Well, it's 25mm away from a plug socket or an electric cable, or 150mm away from a consumer unit. Is there anything we could do in this situation? Well, we could protect the gas pipe by using electrical tape and go 25mm above and below the socket. Well, that'll look a bit shocking. Is the gas pipe showing any signs of damage or corrosion? No, then it's not to current standards. But you would note it down on your paperwork that it's too close to the socket and it should be moved, because it'd probably be easier to move the gas pipe than it would to move the socket. Now this picture represents you going to do a landlord's report, and you find there is a flueless space heater. Now the flueless space heater passes all its tests, including its flue gas analyzer test, but you find this ventilation, which is also the correct ventilation, installed in this location in close proximity to this flueless space heater. So how are we going to classify this? So you can find this on page 38 of iGEM G11, paragraph 9.6. Flueless space heaters installed in a room or internal space where the air vent is incorrectly positioned, and we will be classifying it as at risk. So there's some notes to the side which I think we need to know, so let's have a look at these notes. So the notes say refer to the manufacturer's installation instructions and BS 5871 part 4 for the correct positioning. For further guidance, see Gas Safe Registered Technical Bulletin 088. So basically what they're saying now is these vents need to be at least 1 metre away from the appliance. Now, why is it important that these vents need to be at least 1 metre away from a flueless space heater? Well, basically what they're saying is, or what they have found over the years of having these appliances, is that if the vent is too close to the appliance, it can keep the ASD working, so it can supply the air for combustion and keeping the ASD on, but it can actually vitiate the room. So that's the main reason why these vents need to be away from the appliance of a meter. They also say split them 50-50, so if you need 100 centimetres squared up to 2.7 kilowatts, split it 50-50, one high, one low. Less chance of them getting blocked and age, convection and all the rest of it. I've got loads of videos on flueless space heaters, so I'll have a watch of them. So that's why they need to be a meter away, so the ASD, or the atmospheric sensing device, doesn't stay on if the room gets vitiated. Now this picture represents you going to do a tightness test on a landlord report. So this is the meter you're confronted with. This meter is installed inside the property. So is there anything wrong here? So page 23, IGM G11 2.9, medium pressure or higher fed meter, installation located within a domestic premises. We will be classifying this as at risk. Anyway, we've also got some notes, so let's have a look at the notes. So in these notes it says, in all cases inform the relevant gas transporter or gas supplier as appropriate, who will send a competent person to site to undertake further investigations. For further guidance, see Gas Safe Registered Technical Bulletin 003. Now this picture represents you going to service a boiler and you found that another engineer has bypassed this high limit stat. So IGEM G11 addition 2, page 35, 7.4, appliance gas controls and safety devices that affect the safe operation of an appliance, which are inoperative, failing to danger or are disabled. We would be classing this as ID. Well, let's have a look at these notes and see what it says there. So these notes say examples of devices include flame supervision devices or FSDs, regulators, spillage monitoring systems, e.g. TTBs or ASDs, air pressure switches and high limit thermostats, etc. So that's why this has become ID, is because it's been bypassed. But because it has been bypassed, we should also be riddooring the engineer who's bypassed this safety device and left this boiler running. So as well as being ID, this is also RIDDOR reportable. Now let's finish off with this picture and let's see exactly how many faults you can find with this open flued boiler, if there are any faults that is. So give you a few seconds to have a look and see what you can come up with. Now, how many faults have you spotted behind me here then? Shall we start at the bottom here on the above the draft diverter? Can you see that the actual appliance adapter isn't sealed to the draft diverter? So that's the first one. Next one, not 600 rise to the first bend. What angle have we got on the bends? So we've got two 90-degree elbows, which is not allowed. Have you noticed the damage on the 90-degree elbow where it's showing signs of spillage? Have you noticed it's painted as well? And also the signs of spillage on the wall as well. What are we going to classify this as? Let's take the faults on the Flue system first. So we've got not 600 rise, we've got 90-degree bends, we've got painted, and we've got damage. Now all these different scenarios, obviously as long as products of combustion aren't coming into the room, we will classify them as at risk. IGEM G11, page 31 it is, and it's 5.9, it says, existing open flue chimney systems installed with one or more defects likely to affect the safe and effective performance of the chimney and flue system. And it says we will classify them as at risk. Now on the notes it says, examples of installation defects likely to affect open chimney flue performances include, but are not limited to, inadequate vertical rise to the first bend, so the not 600, inadequately supported, well you can't see any clips on this, 90-degree bends, yeah, we've got two 90-degree bends, Non-compliant termination position, well, you don't know where that is. Incorrect use of chimney flue material, e.g. exposed chimney flue liner. So if you do go to an open flue boiler and there's flue liner on show, that's also at risk. Inadequately sized chimney flue pipe, it's the right size. And unsuitable terminal fitting. Again, you can't see the terminal. At the bottom it says, where one or more such defect or defects is or are identified, the engineer shall assess the safety of the gas installation and decide whether the deficiencies are so serious it warrants the installation being classified as at risk or AR. What's our big problem? We've got signs of spillage. So what does that make it? Yeah, it makes it immediately dangerous. I think if you racked up to this boiler and you saw it in this state, hopefully you would be IDing it. And obviously if you did a flue flow test and spillage and found out it was failing, then it would be definitely ID. Now you can see from this video that iGEM G11 edition 2 doesn't give you every scenario that you might come across as a gas engineer. So there could be times then when you need to categorise something but the book won't help you. But just remember, if it's spilling gas, if it's spilling products of combustion, if it's got its safety devices been made inoperative, if it should be flued, if it's not, if it's gone the wrong gas, so if it's LPG on a natural gas or natural gas and an LPG, these are immediately dangerous situations. If it's anything else and you can't find it in the book, then it could be not to current standards. It's as simple as that. So use your judgment, because like I've said in this video, you are the engineer on site and you are the engineer who's solely responsible for making the decision. If you can't make a decision, the book also says you can seek further advice, i.e. gas safe, i.e. the manufacturer of the appliance. And there's been a lot of comments about that first picture. Why do you think I chose it? Anyway, that, oh, the wind could be blowing in the right direction when you're testing it for it not to come into the building, but 2 days later it could be blowing in another direction. It's all if, buts and maybes. Okay? If the flue goes outside, then it's very unlikely that those products of combustion are going to come back into the building unless it's getting into the property. Whether it's coming in through the window, whether it's coming in through an air vent or an extractor fan or whatever. But you're making the decision there and then. It's like when you do a flue flow test. If you do a flue flow test and a spillage test on an open flued appliance, it can pass the day you're doing it, but 3 weeks down the line we could have adverse weather conditions and it could fail. So as long as you've got proof of what you're doing and the results of what you've got, then why are you going to be worried about being prosecuted? Because a lot of it seems to be you over egg the pudding because you're scared of being prosecuted. I would be more scared of the customer having a go at me in some situations. So it's major important that we actually classify these faults correctly and promptly. But if you do think it's immediately dangerous and you've got evidence to prove it, then follow the procedure. And if you think it's not to current standards, follow the procedures. And if you think it's at risk, follow the procedures. Because at the end of the day, guys, it's down to the engineer on site and what you're seeing at that time. Not that it could blow in products combustion 3 years down the line because the wind changes. It's all about what it's doing while you're doing the tests at that time. So, if you missed this first video, then you can catch it here. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.